I wasn't supposed to be at their house that late. It was just supposed to be a quick study session with her son, Malik, 2 chapters of mechanical design, 1 practice sheet, and I'd be gone before dinner. But the night stretched longer than it should have, and by the time the pages started blurring, the house had gone quiet. That's when she walked in. "Still at it?" she asked, her voice carrying that tired warmth people have when they've had a long day but can't quite stop caring. I looked up, halfway through solving an equation I barely understood. She leaned against the doorway, her hair tied up loosely, a few strands falling over her cheek. Her blouse sleeves were rolled to her elbows, like she'd just finished washing something. Maybe dishes, maybe her hands after fixing a leaking pipe. She wasn't dressed up, but she didn't need to be. There was this quiet authority about her, the kind that didn't come from age, just presence. "Yeah," I said, trying not to sound as tired as I felt. "Malik's gone to grab something from the store. I was just finishing this last part." She smiled faintly and stepped into the room, the smell of laundry detergent and something faintly floral following her. "He always finds a reason to leave when there's work to do." There was no judgment in her tone, more like she was amused and maybe a little used to it. She crouched beside the small desk, her eyes skimming over my notebook. I froze when I realized how close she was, the kind of close where I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the light catching in the curve of her lips, the faint indentation of her wedding ring tan line that wasn't there anymore. She bent a little further, scanning the page, and said softly, "You're staring at more than the books." My breath caught. For a second, I thought I'd misheard her. But she didn't look up. She kept her eyes on the notebook, her tone almost playful, but not quite. Then, as if realizing she'd said too much, she stood up quickly, brushing invisible dust from her hands. "Anyway," she said, voice steady again, "you're good with numbers. Malik could learn a thing or two." I wanted to say something back, something light, something that would make her laugh. But nothing came out, just a small sound that wasn't a word, more like the beginning of one. She must have noticed. Her lips curved in that knowing way, not mocking, but like she'd seen this kind of nervous silence before and didn't mind it. "I'll get you both some tea," she murmured, turning toward the kitchen. The moment she left, the air felt different, too still, too aware of what had just happened. I tried to focus on the notebook, but my handwriting suddenly looked foreign, slanted, distracted. From the kitchen, I could hear the faint sound of water filling the kettle, a drawer opening, her humming, low, unhurried. It was one of those ordinary sounds that shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. It settled under my skin like a pulse I couldn't ignore. When she returned, she set the mugs down beside my papers. "Sugar?" she asked. I nodded. She poured a small spoonful into my cup, stirred it once, and handed it to me. Her fingers brushed mine, just lightly. Accidental, maybe, but it was enough to send a strange warmth crawling up my arm. Neither of us said anything. The clock ticked. The steam rose between us. She finally smiled, a small, private smile, and said, "Don't stay too long, okay? Homework's not worth missing sleep for." I nodded again, but I didn't move. When she left, the chair across from me stayed empty, but it felt like she was still there. Her perfume, the faint echo of her voice, the image of her bending over my notebook like she could read more than numbers on the page. That night, I didn't finish my homework. I kept thinking about that line, half a joke, half something else, and the way she said it without looking up. Like maybe she wasn't just talking about me. It had been a week since that night. I told myself it was nothing, a moment, a misunderstanding, a line that only sounded like something else. But then she called. Malik's bike chain had snapped, and she needed help fixing it. He was out with friends. I was the mechanical guy. That was the excuse. When I got there, she was in the driveway, crouched beside the bike, her hands already smudged with grease. She looked up and gave me a quick smile. "I thought I could handle it," she said. "Turns out I'm better with recipes than repair tools." Her laugh was quiet, but it lingered, soft around the edges, the kind that sounds like it's been a while since she's used it for herself. I knelt beside her, the concrete warm under my knees. "You loosened the wrong side," I said, pointing at the bolt. She sighed and leaned back on her heels. "Story of my life. she muttered, more to herself than to me. I didn't respond. I just started working, the metal clicking softly under the wrench. She stayed beside me, close enough that I could feel her presence without looking at her. Every now and then, she brushed her hair out of her face, and I caught the faint scent of soap and detergent. Simple, familiar, human. "You're good at this," she said after a pause. "It's just a chain." "No," she said, her tone quieter now. "You're good at fixing things." She said it like it wasn't about the bike anymore. Then she looked away, eyes tracing the fading paint on the fence as if she'd said too much. I wanted to ask what she meant, but the moment felt too fragile. I just kept tightening the chain, pretending I didn't hear the ache under her words. When I finished, I wiped my hands on a rag. She took it from me before I could stop her, her fingers brushing mine again. That same electric contact, unintentional but deliberate all the same. Her hands were smaller than I expected, but steady. She wiped the grease off my palm like it mattered, like she couldn't stand to see it there. "There," she said softly, eyes on my hand. "You shouldn't leave with a mess." I didn't move. She held my hand for a second longer than she needed to. Then she seemed to realize it, pulled back quickly, and turned toward the fence. "Thank you," she said, clearing her throat. "Malik's lucky to have a friend like you." Her voice was steady again, but something about it sounded forced, like she was holding a door closed. I wanted to tell her I wasn't doing it for Malik, but I didn't. I just nodded and started packing the tools. When I stood to leave, she was still by the fence, tracing a line in the wood with her fingertip, slow, absent-minded, like she was trying to remember the feel of something she'd once cared about. The evening light caught her face, softening everything. The tiredness around her eyes, the guarded lines of her mouth. I didn't say goodbye. I just looked once, long enough for her to notice, and when she did, she gave me that same quiet, knowing half-smile. "Don't stay in the sun too long," she said. "You'll burn." I smiled back. I think I already did. For a second, she didn't breathe. Neither did I. Then she turned away, pretending to fix the bike again, but her hands trembled just enough for me to see it. It started raining before I got there. Not a heavy storm, just the kind that fills the air with static, where everything feels closer than it should. I was supposed to drop off Malik's notes. He'd missed a week of class, and I didn't think twice when she said I could swing by. But when she opened the door, it wasn't Malik standing behind her, it was no one. "He's out," she said, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "You can leave them here if you want." The sensible thing would have been to hand her the folder and leave. Instead, I stepped inside. Her house smelled faintly of rain-soaked curtains and something simmering on the stove. Lentils, maybe, or soup. The kind of smell that made a place feel like it had a heartbeat. She closed the door behind me, soft click, and for a second, the world outside disappeared. "You're drenched," she said. "Sit. I'll get you a towel." I hesitated. "It's fine, really." But she was already gone, her footsteps fading into the hall. I stood awkwardly near the table, drops of rain collecting at my feet. She came back with a towel and one of Malik's hoodies. "Here," she said, handing them over. "You'll catch a cold." When our fingers touched this time, neither of us pulled away right away. Just a second, maybe less. But enough. I dried my hair, mumbled thanks, and she smiled, the kind that hides something behind it. She moved to the stove, stirring the pot, her back to me. "You hungry?" I didn't answer. She turned, eyebrow raised, waiting. "Yeah," I said finally. "A little." We ate in the kitchen, 2 bowls, 1 quiet clock. The rain pressed against the windows, soft but insistent. She asked about school. I asked about her work. The conversation stumbled, stopped, restarted, the way it does when both people are trying not to say what they mean. At one point, she laughed, really laughed, and then caught herself, like the sound had betrayed her. "It's been a long time since I've had company," she said, eyes lowering to her bowl. I didn't know what to say. The only sound was the spoon clinking softly against ceramic. Then her phone buzzed on the counter. She looked at it, didn't pick it up. The name flashing on the screen, Daniel, lingered long enough for me to see her expression shift. "Your husband?" I asked quietly before I could stop myself. She froze for a second, then exhaled, shaking her head. The word fell between us like a dropped glass. I nodded, pretending to focus on the soup, pretending the air didn't suddenly feel heavier. The phone stopped buzzing, the silence that followed even louder. She leaned against the counter, eyes distant. "You know," she said after a moment, "it's strange how quiet a house can get after someone leaves." I wanted to tell her I understood, that I'd been feeling that same kind of quiet lately, the kind that hums behind your ribs. But the word stayed stuck. Instead, I just said, "It doesn't sound strange at all." Her gaze flicked to mine, slow, searching, almost pleading. The rain outside softened, but inside the stillness grew. She took a step toward me, just one. I felt the warmth of her even before she stopped. For a heartbeat, it felt like she might reach out. Or I might. But then the phone rang again, louder this time, breaking the silence in half. She stepped back, almost startled. She began. Her voice caught somewhere between apology and relief. I nodded, already turning toward the door, pretending I didn't notice her hand trembling as she reached for the phone. Outside, the rain had stopped, but my skin still burned from the nearness of her. We hadn't touched. Not really. And still, it felt like we had. It had been days since the night of the rain. We didn't text. We didn't call. But she was still there, in every pause between sentences, every late-night thought that refused to leave me alone. So when she showed up at the college workshop on Friday, said she was just picking up Malik's registration papers, it didn't feel like chance. It felt like something inevitable, like gravity doing what it does. She waited near the doorway, her hands folded neatly, pretending to look at the bulletin board. I was cleaning grease off my hands, pretending not to notice her. "You're avoiding me," she said finally. I turned. "You think so?" Her expression didn't change. "I know so." The room was empty now, quiet except for the hum of the fluorescent light overhead. I set the rag down slowly, not trusting myself to speak yet. She walked closer, stopping a few feet away, close enough for the scent of her perfume to settle into the air. Faint, familiar, like rain on warm metal. "I shouldn't have called you that night," she said. "About the bike. I could have fixed it myself." "You didn't have to explain," I said. "You needed help." She gave a small, sharp laugh. "Help," she repeated. "That's what we're calling it." The silence that followed wasn't angry, just tired. Heavy. "I don't know what we're doing," she said after a long pause. "You're too young to even understand what this looks like." Her words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. "I understand enough," I said quietly. She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes softened, but she didn't move closer. "You think this is about understanding?" I didn't answer. The clock on the wall ticked once, then again, painfully slow. "This isn't fair to you," she whispered. "Or to me." I swallowed hard. "Then why does it feel worse when you're not around?" That stopped her. She exhaled shakily, pressing her hand to her temple like she was trying to stop a thought from getting out. "You shouldn't say things like that," she murmured. "I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did." I didn't deny it. Couldn't. She looked down at the floor, at my boots still stained with oil, and shook her head slowly. "You remind me of something I used to be," she said. "Something I can't afford to remember." Her voice was breaking in the smallest ways, not loud enough to notice, unless you were close. I wanted to tell her I didn't want to ruin anything, that it wasn't about taking or wanting, it was just about being seen. But the words wouldn't form right. "Instead," I said, "you don't have to explain it to me." She looked up, and there it was, that flash of emotion she kept buried, surfacing for half a second before she forced it back. "I do," she said softly. "Because if I don't, you'll think this means something it shouldn't." Her hand brushed the edge of the work table, trembling slightly. "Then tell me," I said. "What does it mean?" She didn't answer right away, just stood there, breathing unevenly, her throat moving as if she were swallowing a truth she didn't want to release. Finally, she whispered, "It means I think about it, too." And just like that, she turned and left. No goodbye, no look back. Only the sound of her footsteps fading down the hall, and the echo of her words, the kind that don't end when they're spoken, but when you finally admit they've changed everything. I didn't expect her to call again. Not after what she said that day in the workshop. But a week later, she did. her voice quieter than usual, almost uncertain. Could you come by for a minute? There's something I need help with. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself I'd just stop by, help, leave. But deep down, I already knew I wouldn't be able to treat it like nothing. When I got there, the house was dim, curtains half drawn, the kind of light that makes time feel slower. She was sitting at the table, her phone face down beside an open box. Old photographs. I was cleaning, she said softly. Didn't expect to find these. She slid one across the table toward me. I looked down, a younger version of her, hair shorter, eyes brighter. A man beside her, arm around her shoulders. He looked my age. That's Daniel, she said. When we met. I didn't say anything. My throat felt dry. She gave a small, almost embarrassed smile. I was 25. Thought I knew everything about love. Turns out I just knew how to mistake silence for comfort. I watched her fingers trace the edge of the photo. Her nails were chipped, her hands still stained faintly with paint. She must have been fixing something earlier. He left. I asked quietly. Eventually. She sighed. But not before we both stopped trying to stay. The honesty in her tone was disarming. Not self-pity, just tired truth. I think that's why I noticed you, she said. Eyes still on the photograph. You look at people the way I used to. Before I learned how not to. That hit harder than it should have. I wanted to say something. Anything. But words felt too small for the weight of what she was giving me. She finally looked up, meeting my eyes. When you're young, you think attention means love. Later, you learn it can just mean someone needed to feel seen for a moment. Her voice trembled, just a little. She pressed her lips together like she was holding something back. I shouldn't have said what I did before, she whispered. About thinking about it too. Her breath hitched. You remind me of him. Before he changed. The room went silent, thick with things neither of us wanted to name. So that was it. That was what I was to her, a shadow of something she'd lost. But even as she said it, her hand moved toward the photo and stopped halfway. I don't mean just how you look, she said quickly, almost afraid I'd misunderstood. It's the way you listen. Like every word matters. He used to do that. I didn't trust myself to speak. My pulse was loud in my ears. Then, as if realizing how much she'd revealed, she closed the box slowly, sliding it away. Thank you for coming, she said. I shouldn't have called. I stood, unsure what to do with my hands, with my heart. At the door, I turned back. He was lucky, I said quietly. She smiled, small, brittle. He was, she said. He just didn't know it. I nodded once, stepped outside into the cool evening. Behind me, I heard her whisper something too soft to catch. But I didn't need to hear the words to feel what they were. Whatever she said, it followed me all the way home and wouldn't stop echoing in the silence. It was late when I saw her again. The kind of late where even the air feels hushed, like the world's taking a breath and you're the only ones left awake to notice. She was sitting outside on the porch, sweater wrapped around her shoulders, a cup of tea cooling beside her. The light from the living room spilled through the window, soft, golden, outlining her like a memory that didn't want to fade. She didn't seem surprised to see me, just lifted her eyes and said, You walk quieter these days. I wasn't sure I should come, I said. You shouldn't have, she replied, then added, softer. But I'm glad you did. I sat on the step beside her, close enough to feel the warmth of her arm through the fabric of her sleeve. For a long while, neither of us spoke. The night hummed with crickets and the faint rustle of leaves. Finally, she broke the silence. I've been thinking about what I said, she murmured. About you reminding me of him. I nodded, staring out at the dark yard. I wasn't fair to you, she said. You're not him. You never were. Her voice carried something fragile, like glass held too tightly. I don't know what this is between us, I said quietly. But I don't think it's a mistake. She turned toward me, her eyes tired but clear. You say that now, she whispered. But someday you'll look back and realize it couldn't have gone anywhere. Maybe, I said. But it did go somewhere. Here. That made her smile. Just barely, the corners of her mouth trembling. You always find the kindest way to be wrong. We both laughed then, softly, like it hurt a little. The porch light flickered once, a moth bumping against it. She reached over, her hand brushing mine without hesitation this time. It wasn't a touch meant to lead anywhere, just to stay. I keep waiting for this to fade, she said, for the pull to quiet down. But it doesn't. I turned to face her. Maybe it's not supposed to. Her hand tightened slightly, then loosened again. She leaned back against the post, exhaling slowly. Do you ever feel like something in your life started too late? Every day, I said. We sat there until the tea went cold and the night began to pale. Words had stopped meaning much. They'd already been replaced by something quieter, truer. When she finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. This can't be a story we tell anyone, she said. I know, but it's still ours. I nodded. The moment stretched, delicate and steady, the kind you don't want to end because you already know it will. She leaned her head lightly against my shoulder, the weight of it both gentle and irrevocable. I didn't move, didn't breathe for a second too long. We didn't say goodbye that night. We didn't have to. The silence between us said it all, that whatever this was, it had already happened. And that was enough. It's strange how certain moments don't fade, they just grow quieter. It's been months now. Malik and I still talk sometimes, though not as much. He doesn't know about any of it, and maybe that's how it should be. Some stories aren't built to survive daylight. I still pass by their house sometimes, just out of habit. The porch light's always on, like a constant. The same way it was that night when we sat together, neither of us saying what we didn't have to. I think about that light more than I should. How it wasn't bright, just steady. The kind that doesn't try to show everything, just enough to make you stay a little longer. She moved last month. New job, new town, new quiet. She texted me once before she left. Just thank you for seeing me. No explanation. No goodbye. And yet, that single line said more than anything else could. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know how. But when I finally did, all I wrote was, I still do. There was no reply, and somehow, that silence felt like an answer. Looking back, I think what we had wasn't about love in the way people define it. It wasn't about claiming or crossing lines. It was about recognizing something familiar in someone you weren't supposed to. A reflection of a part of yourself you didn't realize was missing. She taught me that love isn't always loud or right or lasting. Sometimes it's just a quiet recognition, a moment when two people see each other completely, even if just once. Since her, I notice more. The way people look down when they're trying not to cry. The way small kindnesses are given without reason. The weight silence can carry. She used to say I reminded her of who she used to be, but I think it was the other way around. She reminded me of who I could be, if I stopped running from the quiet parts of myself. Every now and then, when it rains, I still think of her, not with ache, not with regret, just a soft understanding, like the echo of a song you don't need to play again because it's already inside you. Maybe that's what love really is. Not the staying, not the having, but the being changed by someone enough that you can never go back to who you were before them. I never told anyone about her. Maybe I never will. But whenever I see a porch light in the distance, steady and warm, I remember that sometimes the most forbidden thing isn't the love itself. It's the way it makes you see yourself more clearly. And I think she'd understand that. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?